I mean, I will tell you this right now. There's no way Disney's picking him up after his contract expires in April. They will let it expire, and that's it. Disney doesn't want this. Disney shareholders don't want politics. They just want it. They want entertainment. They want, and why would you want to allow 50 automatically? Take there's 80 million voters that we don't want to watching our show. He listens. I mean, I think he's affected by the head writer, who's his wife, who's a liberal. That's
the head writer is his wife.
Yeah, that's way out there.
Jimmy Kimmel's wife.
Jimmy Kimmel.
No, I know, but the head writer for what? For the show?
Jimmy Kimmel show.
The show is
his wife.
Did you see the podcast where he looked like he was a hostage by her over liberal white anger and bitterness?
Late night used to be the one place we could all land at the end of the day and just breathe. You lie down on the couch, half asleep, and let a silly monologue take your stress away like a warm shower. The deal was that you give me jokes, I give you my eyeballs, and we both pretend tomorrow won't be a disaster. But somewhere along the way, a bunch of late night shows stopped being a nightly escape and started acting like a nightly scolding. Dad, I get it if you've been wondering why some hosts seem to be falling off, why the vibe is off, and why there's less ha-ha and more okay. You are not making it up. If you're enjoying this breakdown already, do me a favor. Tap like, hit subscribe, and stick around because this is one of those conversations where the comment section is basically part of the show.
If you were wondering how bad these Epstein files are for Trump, turns out they're Invade Venezuela bad. This is literally the plot of the movie Wag the Dog. The president gets caught in a sex scandal, so he attacks a smaller country to distract us, and here we are. Distracted. On Saturday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife were captured by Delta Force at their home in Caracas and brought to New York. Trump watched the operation unfold in real time from the bunker in his...
Here's the thing. Comedy is a fragile little creature, similar to a houseplant. You can't just dump random chemicals in the soil and then act shocked when it dies. This role is important because comedy requires some mischief and unexpected timing. An audience that feels like they're in on the joke, not the target of a lecture. The room also shifts when a comedian begins to treat the audience like a classroom. People stop laughing. They begin to clap. And clapping is not laughter's cousin. Clapping is what happens when the joke didn't land. But the crowd agrees with the sentiment. That is no longer a comedy show. That is a cheerleader rally with a comedy track. Rob Schneider basically walked into this whole mess like, yeah, I think I know what's happening. And whether you love him, hate him, or only remember him as the guy from those Adam Sandler movies, his point is pretty simple. You stop being funny when you get too far down the politics rabbit hole. You operate in the messaging industry. You're in the I want to make a point business. Additionally, the issue is that people do not tune into late night programming because they require additional evidence. They've had points shoved into their face all day in 4K. There are notifications, timelines, jokes, doom scrolls, and everyone yelling that the sky is falling.
I'll tell you, my response to that is it's a really good warning to comedians and other hosts and other people who do shows that if you go too far down the conspiracy rabbit hole, or if you just get too politicized, and then all of a sudden you're not. You're not in the funny business anymore. You're just in the it's politics, and it's it's really a propaganda through comedic imposition. They're imposing their views.
The dessert is supposed to come late at night. When a dessert starts to taste like broccoli, people don't finish it politely. They push the plate away. Now, let's talk about Jimmy Kimmel specifically, because Schneider's criticism isn't subtle. His impression is that Kimmel used to be funny. He is now emotionally invested in a single topic as though it were a blood feud. And notice that nobody suggests that a late-night host cannot employ political humor. Political humor is basically part of the American diet, similar to ketchup. It goes on everything whether it should or not. The problem arises when the jokes cease to be jokes and begin to resemble a person reading a Twitter thread aloud in dramatic lighting. One of the examples floating around is Kimmel doing a bit that leans hard into Wag the Dog territory, like, oh, here's this big dramatic distraction plot wrapped up in a monologue format that's delivered like it's obvious truth. And even if you agree with the target, even if you're cheering from your couch, there's still a problem. It gets repetitive. It becomes routine.
If you were wondering how bad these Epstein files are for Trump, turns out they're Invade Venezuela bad. This is literally the plot of the movie Wag the Dog. The president gets caught in a sex scandal, so he attacks a smaller country to distract us, and here we are. distracted. On Saturday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife were captured by Delta Force at their home in Caracas and brought to New York. Trump watched the operation unfold in real time from the bunker in his basement.
Additionally, comedy dies when the audience anticipates your destination. The fatal flaw is predictability. When the audience can finish your sentence, you're cooked. It's not just Kimmel, either. The bigger issue is the whole late-night ecosystem started feeling like it's running the same software update. Different host, same vibe, different stage, same cadence, and you'll hear the same general punchline. Oh, this political thing happened must be because of that political scandal repackaged with slightly different phrasing. It stops feeling like comedy writing after a while. It feels like homework for a group, like somebody emailed out a template, and everyone filled in their own synonyms. Which brings me to the weirdest part. No longer are audiences held captive. Back in the day, you watched what was on. The host could frame a story however they wanted. And unless you were the kind of person who read 3 newspapers before breakfast, you just absorbed it. Now you can fact-check, cross-check, and memo-check something in 10 seconds before the commercial break ends. People are posting receipts in the comments. So when a host presents speculation like certainty, the audience doesn't feel informed. They feel patronized like, oh, you think I can't tell the difference between a joke, a rumor, and a sermon?
It wasn't funny, and it wasn't particularly interesting, and it's just factually incoherent. Because believe me, if there was anything in those files about Trump, the Democrats had it for years. They would have released it, but you think they would have hid that stuff to protect Trump? No, it would have been out.
Billboards.
So I mean,
and the audience doesn't get angry if they feel like they were treated poorly. They don't write a letter to the network. They simply vanish. That is the most recent denial. The silent murder by remote control. No drama, no protest, just gone. The basic premise of Schneider's framing is that Kimmel did not trip and fall into this. He walked into it. He chose a lane where the monologue becomes a political nightly ritual. And he stayed in that lane for so long that he forgot how to merge into comedy traffic again. In addition, the way people talk about it, you can hear their frustration. When's the last time he was actually funny? Not when's the last time he had a good take funny, because that's the job. That is the agreement. You get a desk and a band and a studio audience because you're supposed to be the comedic relief valve for a stressed-out country.
Look, obviously, all that stuff should come out, but the presumption that there's stuff there, how much more of this is like it's people see that Russia was the only 2 people not involved in the Russia-Trump collusion was Russia and Trump. Everybody else seemed to be colluding. So I think the American people see through that. It's just like when you watch the news, depending if you're watching CNN, you have to go, okay, if politics is war by other means, this is war. So it's just a political warfare. So what are they not telling you?
Consider the old school late night legends that are frequently mentioned. Carson, Letterman, Lowe. Say what you want about their style, but they understood something basic. Everyone is welcome. The joke has to travel. It has to bounce around the room. If it only works for one team, it's not a joke. This is a chant. Jay Leno is the example Schneider brought up for a reason. Leno could hit everybody. Celebrities, presidents, and random cultural nonsense. He didn't need one villain to keep the show afloat. He could find the absurdity in Starbucks, opening another Starbucks inside a Starbucks, and make half the country laugh without turning it into a moral lecture. That is the secret. You feel lighter rather than more tense when you leave the show. And here's where it gets interesting. The laughter shifts when comedy becomes a political identity signal. There is nothing clever about the crowd's laughter. They are cheering because it is in line with them. And you can feel it. It's like the studio audience has turned into a human-like button. Clap if you agree. If you despise that person, woo. Cheer if you're on the correct side of history. That's not stand-up energy. That is a gathering.
He was funny after 9/11, so 24 years ago. When's the last time Jimmy Kimmel was actually funny?
Well, I will tell you, you can't really come up with like, well, that was a really good zinger. I mean, like, Jay Leno, you can remember. I mean, I remember his jokes, when he was on, just hey, they remember when Starbucks Starbucks is opening up another 600 Starbucks. And where can they open it up? The only place I can think of is inside other Starbucks. He would have...
Leno was the best.
He was really the best comedian of his era. And, and he was
fair, though. That's the thing about Leno. He'd call out all sides.
Those guys. I mean, Carson and Letterman, they